Modern vehicle development is no longer conceivable without methods of virtual product development. For this reason, BMW has invested a lot of effort in innovative simulation methods in this area for decades. The BMW Group is a world leader in this area. This is important for the further development of the Chinese market. Mik.
And I'm Mik Kersten. You may know me from the book Project to Product, and I'm thrilled to be here, and actually thrilled to be here with Rene Te-Strote, who's going to tell us some fascinating stories around virtual product development and really the future of simulation and what I see as the future of value stream networks. Now, Rene also happens to be the main character in my book, so I'm very happy to be here. You can see I'm wearing the same vest that he gave me when we toured the Leipzig plant, and where I learned so much around the future of software delivery, of software supply chains, and of how both physical and software products will be built. So I told some of those stories in the book Project to Product, and the book really created something called the Flow Framework. The Flow Framework was really meant to capture a lot of the ideas that Rene taught me when we walked through that plant tour on how we connect value stream networks and how we do that in a safe and governable and controllable way, and then how we manage and gain visibility into those networks. So the book Project to Product really embodies this. The Flow Framework is how you can approach this, and you'll see some very novel and forward-looking ways in which BMW is pushing the BMW Group are pushing the boundaries across all of this. And of course, Tasktop has technical solutions and products and services to help organizations implement this. But the key thing for me that I realized is just how much different we are in terms of the world of innovation in enterprise organizations versus what we've been seeing in BMW Group. So just as a quick story, the story highlighted in Project to Product, I witnessed when a top 25 bank was on their third transformation. They were applying all the techniques of DevOps. They had $1 billion that was invested in this transformation. Yet this project management layer between IT and the business meant that everything went off track. Nothing was connected, nothing was visible, other than these proxy metrics of project management that we have, such as cost centers and really project plans. And I realized there's something just fundamentally wrong with this worldview and this way of managing. And I realized from my trip to BMW just how different it is in an innovative organization like BMW Group. So the thing that I want to highlight here is that as we've moved from the different technological revolutions, we used to have factory systems, subcontracting. We created new management disciplines as we moved, say, from the age of steam and railways to the age of steel and heavy engineering. This is detailed in Product. This is the work of Claude Perez, published in our 2002 book, Technological Revolutions and Financial Capital. So what's happened as we have these revolutions, approximately every 50 years, we come up with new management disciplines. And what I realized by visiting the BMW Leipzig plant with Rene is that enterprise IT organizations are still stuck in the age of steel and heavy engineering. They're still stuck in Taylor's principles. And right now, we're in the age of software and digital. We've got amazing examples of organizations who've actually transitioned through these turning points, through these creative destruction periods where many companies vanish because they don't adapt to the new climate. And so the thing that's fascinating about BMW Group is they actually made it through that last turning point. They made it through the age of oil and mass production, where hundreds of car startups, there were 300 car startups in Detroit alone, vanished. And it's because of their mastery of lean thinking and lean techniques. So, the question I posed in Project to Product is, how can we help organizations get through this? How can we help them get through these turning points? Because we're seeing a turning point today. COVID has actually accelerated and triggered that turning point, and either companies become software innovators or they're going to end up getting pushed aside. One thing that we know is that we've got organizations today, such as the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, who've actually mastered this. So the question for me became, how can we bring your organization forward in this? And the answer is not through more project management. The answer is through these connected value stream networks. And that is exactly what I saw in that Leipzig plant when Rene and I visited there. So to quickly tell you some of that story, if we look at what the Leipzig plant embodies, it is innovation around an amazing customer experience delivered through these cars. Now, the way that that's approached is through just a mastery of lean principles that BMW Group has now been able to apply to software. So these principles from Jim Womack's book are precisely specify value by product, not by project, not by silo, not by cost center, but by a product, by some benefit that you're delivering to customers. Identify the value stream for each product. So listen as Rene takes you through how these value streams now span continents in this sort of innovation around virtual product development and car delivery that BMW Group is now doing. Make value flow without interruptions. You need regions, silos, different roles and disciplines completely connected to make sure that value flows, whether that value is a car or that value is an intangible asset, such as a part of a simulation or a feature you're delivering, and let the customer pull value from the producer. So in the end, it's all about delivering customer value. And the shocking thing to me, when I was at the Leipzig plant and is contrasting basically the state of one of the most modern plants on the planet and what we see in enterprise IT organizations is just what the differences were. Everything in car production has become these integrated production lines. And as you'll hear Rene say, that now spans the software and intangible aspects of delivery and of simulation across continents. Whereas in enterprise IT, we're still settling for these disconnected tool chains and silos, which clearly don't work. Everything in car production is managed as products. You just want to deliver better and better products more quickly with better flow times to your customers, rather than managing everything as projects, which is an internal metric, not a customer-centric one. This is a key thing, is everything is architected around flow, the flow of knowledge, the flow of information, the flow of value to your customers, rather than obsessing with technology layers and tool stacks and so on. In the end, it's about connecting these things to deliver more flow. Everything is optimized end to end. So if your bottleneck is getting simulation data from Munich to China, of course, that's a bottleneck that you focus on, as you'll see. And everything in the end is around measuring business results. Did we innovate faster? Did we bring a car to market faster? Did simulation actually remove our need to have some physical steps that we had to have before? And now, of course, as you look at this, the key thing is that the way business value flows within the BMW Group is different than the way business value flows in software and intangibles. So what the flow framework really does is it gives you a way to manage and track flows in software delivery, so flows through these intangible assets. In the case of BMW Group, what you've got is cars flowing across the production line when you're looking at their plants. But when you're looking at all the software in the cars, now the cars, like the i8, have over 100 million lines of software, and future cars will have even more with autonomous driving. You actually need to both connect the software aspects and the intangible aspects to the physical aspects, as well as actually, and here's the key thing, connecting production. Right? In the end, one of the things that was so amazing to me about the innovation in that plant is how production is seamless and the scales at which it works, because production is well understood and optimizing it and finding bottlenecks is well understood. So we need to do the same thing now for vehicle production by virtualizing the vehicles, being able to apply the principles of Agile and DevOps to actual physical vehicle development, and make sure that, of course, the physical hardware and software and production and all those feedback loops are one. Now, really, to do that, you need to understand what flows in terms of intangibles, in terms of the actual digital assets that are happening. And the flow framework introduces 4 flow items. So features, that's net new business value that you deliver. That could be a new simulation feature. That could be a new some new software that's showing up in a dashboard or in a mobility app. Defects, making sure that you're always improving defects, because these complex systems, their qualities really depend on how quickly you can respond, how quickly you can fix defects as we become more and more iterative and focus more and more on mean time to repair rather than mean time to failure. Risks, we need to make our software, our offerings, our products safe and reliable and governed. And so the flow framework makes risks such as security, privacy, availability, a first-class part of delivery, a first-class part of every single Agile tool chain, every single DevOps methodology. And debts, because as we take shortcuts, as we need to implement and move things to market more quickly, technical debt accumulates. It accumulates in software products. It actually accumulates in physical products. So organizations are now applying these concepts to both software and physical product delivery. And the key thing with the flow framework is that these 4 flow items are mutually exclusive and comprehensively exhaustive. You do more of one, you're going to do less of the other. If you've not created an automation between 2 different sites, between 2 different teams, you're going to incur more and more debt. If you don't take down that debt, it'll slow you down. It'll become your bottleneck. And so what's so fascinating about what you're about to hear Rene say is that the way that BMW Group's actually surmounted a bottleneck that so many organizations haven't even thought of. They've been able to connect simulation across continents by thinking about flow, by thinking about connecting their value stream network. And so if we take a closer look at the flow framework, it allows you to connect your value stream network. This is here the bottom of the value stream network, where you're taking basically all of your organizational silos, you're taking all of the different tools and teams that you have, You're taking all of the different sites that you have, and you're connecting this so that artifacts can flow. Those artifacts can be simulation artifacts. Those artifacts can be requirements. They can be defects. They're basically everything involved in delivering value to the customer along this thing that you create on top of that called the artifact network. Once you've got that in place, you can actually see these value streams. You can optimize these value streams. You can look at where some cultural boundaries or some handoff boundaries need to be refined, need to be optimized, need to be automated. The key thing is, of course, you can put in governance policies. You can meet different regulations for the different sites that you're connecting, because you've actually automated the connectivity in your value stream network, much the way we would connect supply chains with ERP software and the like. So I think the amazing thing, and what I really want you to listen to in Rene's presentation, is that BMW Group have done this. They've actually established this kind of connected value stream network at a global scale, in a very sort of forward-looking, boundary-pushing domain, which is simulation of physical products, and that's allowed them to step up their innovation to far beyond anything I could have expected several years ago, and really apply those principles of agility and DevOps in a controlled and governed way to this very new domain. So with that, I'll hand off to Rene, and let's hear how they've approached this.
Imagine you have to rebuild a direct copy of your home in a foreign country. Where would you start? Hello, my name is Rene Te-Strote, and today I want to talk to you about the R&D ChinaNEXT simulation project of the BMW Group. I am IT project lead since 15 years at BMW, and currently I'm the BMW IT responsible for the build-up of simulation at our Chinese joint venture, BMW Brilliance Automotive, called BBA in Shenyang, China. In specific, I want to explain why we did that, how we did that, and what have we achieved, and about our next steps. So, why did we do that? The fundamental challenge here is that if you want to sell cars in China, you have to develop them there. Now BMW has commissioned BBA to develop a vehicle for the Chinese market. For this, however, BBA needs its own development on-site, and this also includes parts of the simulation in the context of virtual vehicle development, for example, crash simulation. The task was therefore to set up an international distributed vehicle development that would generate synergies in both countries. That's the order we received from the board of directors. Sounds easy, right? It wasn't that easy, I can tell you. Everything was already there in Germany, while we had to start from scratch in China. Here it's important to know how the contracts between BMW and BBA looks like. BMW commissions BBA to take over responsibility for development for a vehicle from a certain point of time. This includes the vehicle simulation. BBA in turn instructs BBA to help to set up the simulation. So we have a double supplier-customer relationship here. And again, at BBA, there was no simulation before. No infrastructure, no skills, nothing. So how did we proceed? We initially faced a great many challenges. This have essentially resulted from the fact that vehicle development, including simulation at BMW in Germany, has grown organically over several decades. In Germany, we have very sophisticated vehicle development and therefore simulation. This now had to be built as precisely as possible in a small format in China. This had led to an extremely high level of complexity. For example, there was no central point of contact for certain topics who could hand us instruction for use. Getting the information I needed as project lead was like a puzzle. As another example, we were faced was the challenge of procuring suitable and concurrent hardware and software and making it available to our Chinese colleagues or helping with procurement. In this context, a pretty funny story was when a first set of data had to be transferred to Shenyang. It was about 6 terabytes of data, just as a first set. Due to the high latency of the lease line between BMW and BBA, there was no faster and cheaper way to get the data to China, to write it on an encrypted hard drive and to send someone with the hard drive to Shenyang on the plane. I did it by myself. It was interesting whether the Chinese custom interfere with the hard drive, but fortunately, no one cared. Another challenge arose from the legal regulations, which are structured very differently in China than in Germany. Certain dates have to go to China in order to be used there for the simulation. If these data are in use at BBA and are then edited and changed by Chinese colleagues, then these data are no longer allowed to leave China easily. Not impossible, but a little bit complicated, but solvable. A similar question was whether and how we can actually transport the data, such as surname, first name, email address from our German colleagues that are important for the simulation data, so that BBA employees know who the contact person in Munich is to China at all. This leads to a specific question in terms of GDPR of the EU. A number of contacts then were then necessary between the business departments, central IT and data protection department, as well as the BMW lawyers, in order to clarify the general conditions, as there were complete confusion in the business departments about that. And there were, again, no central business project lead. So everything has to be clarified from the IT project, even if these are no IT questions. As you can imagine, there were also some cultural differences that made working together more complicated, especially in the initial stages. For non-Germans, it's sometimes difficult to work with Germans and vice versa. We Germans tend to overanalyze things, while Chinese sometimes take certain things for granted and do not necessarily question them. This has led to the fact that German mentality has to deal with certain issues. Some of the Chinese colleagues have completely switched off. And then when it comes to the fact that people of BBA should analyze something themselves and then implement it, sometimes strange results came out. Strange results from the point of view of a German, honestly. But that was this was also due to the fact that too little guidance came from the German side to offer orientation in the beginning. So that's how we all learned to be better with one another. The other example is the tendency of Germans to say directly and clearly what's possible, what not, and when someone has screwed something, even if it's intended as a constructive criticism, a bad idea in some Asian cultures. One or the other German colleagues has ensured that from the point of view of a Chinese, the affected BBA employee has lost face, which then led to an advertisement being extremely protracted, and almost the project plan has endangered. As a moderator, I and my project lead counterpart at BBA then had to ensure relaxation. In the end, the frequent presence of me and my team ensured that trust was built and that we now know each other very well and no longer take everything literally. In 2019, I spent over 100 days in China. But we did it after all. We made it. The entire infrastructure was successfully built up in China. The high-performance computing cluster, the CA workstations, the software, the data supply, everything was successfully put into operation, including many new employees. We ramped up the tool chains for Crash, CFD, MBS, NVH data supply and software sync, and we successfully tested it end-to-end. The first part of the vehicle development is done by BMW and until a specific milestone, and then we'll hand it over to BBA. From that milestone on, BBA is taking responsibility for the vehicle project and will bring it into start of production and mass production. We saw that it's not enough to throw the vehicle project over the fence and then wait for a miracle to finish the project. Continuous collaboration between BMW and BBA is needed to fulfill all requirements of an entire vehicle project. For that, we invented the Agile collaboration model. Through the joint development of an Agile collaboration model that is currently getting more and more up and running, we will also be able to master the cultural challenge and the business needs. You can see here the result of the collab model on a high level. If you would like to find out more, please ask me afterwards or send me an email. You can see that. The core of the collaboration model is that both BMW and BBA work accordingly to the Agile process model. This is important. It's important to know that around 50% of the development of the project is done on each side and must be implemented on BBA's side. This must be brought together in the result, and this is the new dimension here for an IT project. The IT project develops a cross-company result, the simulation build-up, which should later serve the company's core skills in day-to-day business. In the meantime, both vehicle models that we were supposed to develop and simulate there have started successfully. And this is going very, very successfully. Both teams on BBA side and BMW side did a great job. We have reached the target milestones exactly, and the simulation work could be started on schedule, despite Corona. So, what are the next steps? Since we have been so successful, 2 more models will be added to the next planned models. And these 2 models are handed over to BBA very ad hoc, so that preparations for the start must be made very quickly, since BBA's capacities must be expanded for this, and still in 2020. And that's why we will soon extend the existing HPC cluster and the BBA simulation capacities by 100% to start with the extended simulation work beginning 2021. Ultimately, we now have a better distribution of the simulation workload in China and Germany, and we act in Germany and China as one team for one goal. And at the same time, we created new jobs and infrastructure in China, and we are very proud about that. When I was planning this lecture, I was considering which technical implementations I would describe. I came to the conviction that the biggest challenge was not the technical solution, but the cross-company and intercultural cooperation. That's the reason during my whole lecture, I described an IT project, but hardly talked about technical content. Technology is important, no question about that. Anyone can search on Google how to solve technical problems and hire experts. This is nothing new to you. The most important thing in this project, however, is the cooperation, the culture, trust, the understanding for one another. When Corona suddenly appeared, a shutdown was ordered in China within a few days, something that has never happened before in history. Instantly, all of our Chinese colleagues were in their home office. In addition to solving technical problems in this context, e.g. remote access, I saw the trust that we built over the last year counted. We were able to work together perfectly via Skype, and we could trust each other. This would never have worked without the intensive travel activities in 2019. So business trips cannot be completely replaced by video conferencing. This is no substitute for direct personal contact. And so, at the end, we are stronger together.
That's great. Thank you, Rene. And I think it's been such a privilege to work with you and your teams in terms of helping put together that infrastructure that actually helps the teams and collaborate across cultural boundaries, across regulatory boundaries, as you pointed out with GDPR, and really connect these different sites. And I think, as you point out, the human-to-human collaboration is key, but we also need to connect our systems. We need to connect our teams. We need to connect our backlogs. We need to connect our data sources. And doing that with teleconferencing is not enough. So this modeled value stream network infrastructure that BMW Group have created, the way that you've leveraged Tasktop, I think is a sign of things to come. And just quickly in conclusion, I think the key thing is that simulation, this way of working, this way of bridging cultural boundaries is absolutely key to innovation in product delivery, both physical and software and combined. This requires a focus on understanding of value stream management. That is how you're going to connect your teams, your systems, and your sites. And it needs to be implemented in a controlled way. So you need to be able to manage the risk. You need to be able to manage regulation, as you heard Rene say. And to do that, a solution is needed that can actually implement, model, and govern your value stream network and really support that thriving collaboration that can take time to establish, but that you've seen Rene summarize as exactly what's happened. So for more on that, you can learn in terms of value stream networks, projectpride.org, tasktop.com, and of course, follow Rene as his work with BMW Group. So with that, thank you very much.